There's a time for living. The time keeps on flying. Think you're loving, baby, and all you're doing is crying. Can you feel those feelings real? Look at your game, girl. Look at your game, girl. What a mad delusion. Living in that confusion, frustration and doubt. Can you ever live without the game? The sad, sad game. Mad game. Just to say your love's not enough. If on you can't be true, you can tell those lies, baby, but you're only fooling you. Can you feel those feelings real? Look at your game, girl. Oh, look at your game, girl. If you can't feel and the feelings ain't real, then you better stop trying, or you're gonna play crying. Stop trying, or you're gonna play crying. That's the game. Sad, sad game. Mad game. Sad game.
What the fuck, man? I don't know if can you guys hear me? Because my screen is not showing that I am even on. It's odd. I see myself. I'm on my phone. I see myself on my phone, but my StreamYard says that I am not on. So it looks like it's going right though, huh? All right. I don't know. Beyond bizarre. What's happening, but we don't want that. Yeah, I'm on. I'm frozen, so my comments are frozen. And I don't know. I'm going to have to read your comments from here, and I don't think I'm going to be able to show you guys anything. Hold on on 1 second, okay? I'm going to pop right back in here if I can. If it lets me do anything. It's really not letting me do anything. I don't know what the fuck is going on with this thing. So how could it be working on one end and not the other end? So anyways, I could read your comments on my phone, but my whole screen appears to be jammed here. I do not know. Let me see. Everything is just frozen. I can move my mouse thing, but okay, that's coming up. Why isn't everything else coming up? Nothing. Ha! All right. I'm like Nicholas fucking Tesla over here. Got it figured out. Apparently, for now, I got it figured out. Hopefully, Charles Manson doesn't copyright strike me. That song was Charles Manson. Look at your game, girl. I've listened to all his music, not because I'm a fan of Manson or necessarily a fan of his music, but I think it tells you a lot about a person, the music that they play, especially music they listen to, how they react to situations such as fights, things like that. Tells me a lot, but looks like we're up and going here. So this is outstanding. Say hi to everybody. I don't know what the heck was going on there, guys. I've never had that issue before. Jim's mom, how are you? Jinx, always here. Thank you. Jinx, I wasn't even have technical problems. I was watching the game that went into overtime. And Jinx, what the hell happened to Kentucky? Because I had them in the final. I filled 5 brackets out. I had them in the final 4, I think in 3 of them, and winning it in 1, and in the finals in another. So they're kind of after Coach Kell down there. Good morning, Miranda. Good afternoon, Charlotte. I want to say morning. It is 2:45 here, so thank you, Jennifer. You too. Yeah, Laurel Canyon. There's a couple good documentaries on the whole scene there. There was actually another murder or 2 there, so very interesting stuff. And what happened in the 60s? You know what I mean? I don't know. Maybe I'm a hippie at heart, but I feel they were so close to changing everything, and the powers that be weren't having it. That's kind of what I believe. So, you know, in the Delphi case, I'm like, yeah, this isn't a conspiracy. This is, I think. You know, we don't know exactly what happened. Hey, look who it is. Went out to dinner later. Taking my son and his girlfriend. Yeah, I saw you put that, Miranda. I couldn't even get the X. I was going over the X to X out and come back in StreamYard, and I couldn't even do that. What's up, Cindy? Cindy's always coming up with some good funnies in here. What's up, Joe Newman? I'm not going to be able to watch it tonight. Like I said, we're going to go out and have some gluten-free sandwiches, well, I am, and some drinks. But I will check it out tomorrow. Ruckus reached out to me earlier in the week and asked me if I was busy Friday. I don't know if he wanted me to be a part of that or not, but we already had plans, or else I 100% would have been there. 50 Shades of Faye. I discovered you yesterday too. Oh, there's Ruckus. He's in the chat. Discovered you yesterday too with Jinx, and I subbed to your channel. I'm going to tell Jinx to put your address in here, but I bet she already has done it. There's Ruckus. No, I have not, Joe. You know, I did an Israel Keys show. I wasn't really that big on him researching, but Frosty is the guy that you want to talk to, because Frosty has some information on her, and he actually believed, I don't know where he sits on it, that Israel Keys may have been involved in that. Yeah, there's Jinx. She already did it, see? She does stuff before I even think of it. Yeah, it was bad. I didn't get to watch it yesterday. We were fighting a garage fire, so I missed it. Hi. Well, it was funny. We pulled up. It was not funny, but we pulled up. It was a garage on fire, and there's a lot of smoke. You can't see shit. If there wasn't a cop in the middle of the street, I wouldn't know which way I've turned onto what's called Dinsmore Street. It's kind of like an alley, but we could get the engine up there. It's tight, but it's doable. And he's pointing this way because the whole street, the way the weather was and everything here, everything was just smoke. Like you couldn't see houses or nothing. So once we turned up in the alley, I'm like, oh, there it is. It's on fire. We didn't know this place had a second floor on it. Me and my captain that were there initially first. And then the deputy gets there. And like I told you before in the floor episodes, the deputy's supposed to do a 360, the incident commander. For us, it's the deputy. He does a 360, walks around the property, makes sure there isn't anyone hanging out windows. There isn't a cliff behind, whatever. And he makes an all call. And I'm like, man, an all call, which means he's called all the off-duty guys back and a couple mutual aid departments that we use. They're volunteers around us. And he's like, yeah, the whole second floor's collapsed. And we were like, wow, what second floor? But it was very hard to see. But I'm never going to be able to post a good video at work because I can't take any videos till shit's under control. Sometimes other people have stuff, though. Charlotte, a happy little hood. What's up, Purple Haze? Frank Meister mentioned the other day, oh, you can't get that anymore. You can here in Pennsylvania. Hey, one of my best guys here, Gene Eskin. He's a boss. He's a deputy chief. What's up, Gene? I'm going to have Gene on sometime. Gene taught me a whole lot about firefighting. There's 5 guys in my life that helped me grow up. None of them was my real dad because he was out, right? It was like the old the game song. I needed my father, but he needed the needle. So I put that to rest, though. We're all good there. But there was guys, and one of them was my grandpa. One of them was my stepdad, who's been around since I was 2, Big Steve. The other 3 guys were in the fire service. Vince Wasso, who passed away, Gene, who's in the chat, and a guy named Tom Percivali. So I was very fortunate. I'm never going to be the guy that says, oh, I never knew my dad, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to be that guy. And I've since reunited with his family, and I have some pictures of him, and you guys would shit your pants if you saw these pictures because they were like, oh, he looks so much like me. But not on to brighter topics, but on to other topics. Charles Manson, okay? I'm going to do a bunch of these. I'm going to keep it to an hour. I've already talked for 15 minutes almost and had tech problems, but Charles Manson, what we know, let me say this first out. Charles Manson was not a good human being. I'm not here to clear Charles Manson's name. He wasn't crazy. He wasn't insane. He really wasn't insane. He was probably would have made one of the best criminal profilers in the history of criminal profiling. This dude could look at somebody from across the street and know what they wanted to hear and know how he could control them. Men, women, young, old, rich, poor, did not matter. This guy was a master manipulator, absolute master. If you watch the interviews of him, that there's a lot of them out there where he's all crazy and doing all this shit. It's all horse shit. It's all semantics, except for probably 2 interviews that I've watched. And these are media people. The BAU guys let him do their thing. And back then it was the BSU. Let him post them up on a chair. He wants to be higher. He wants to preach down to you from the bully pulpit, right? That's what he's looking to do. The guy's shorter than shit. 5'4". He was a sawed-off little fucker, Manson was. But he was able to control these people and scare an entire country. How did that happen? We'll get to that. But Manson, what do we talk about? I don't even know if they consider Manson a sociopath. He's not a psychopath. he shows psychopathy, but it's all a put on. I truly believe that. And I'm going back to Robert Ressler, to John Douglas, Dr. Burgess, those people that kind of broke Manson down and figured out what he was. And it's the Jim Clemente quote, nature versus nurture. Killers are not born. People are not born killers. I'll die on that mountain. People are not born killers. If you took Gary Ridgway and you put him with a mother that was normal, not saying, knocking his mom, put him with a loving mother that was normal, that didn't, make him get a bath when he was 12 years old, when he peed the bed with her boobs hanging out of her robe, Gary Ridgway is probably a productive member of society today. If you take somebody great, think of somebody great, I don't want to say politicians, but someone who's done great things, and you put them in Gary Ridgway's house, they might have turned out that way. They might not have. We know that genetics loads the gun, your experiences point the gun, and your psychological, your psychopathy, or your psychological makeup, your DNA aims the gun, and your life experiences pull the trigger. You need all three of those things to be not a one-off killer or someone to kill someone in the heat of the moment. These are serial offenders, people that do this, now it's 3. It used to be 2, or there used to be 3. Now it's 2. It's 2 different, killings with time and distance in between at different locations, whatever definition you want to use. The FBI has a good one. John Douglas does not like that it was lowered to 2. He thinks it should be 3. But anyways, Charles Manson, he was born November 12th, 1934. He died November 19th, 2017. So, 7 years ago, Charlie kicked the bucket. His mom's name was Ada Kathleen Maddox. So remember, Charlie Manson was born Charles Maddox. And initially on his birth certificate, it said, baby, I forget what it said, but it didn't have a name. It didn't list a father. It was very bizarre. Now, she was 15 years old, and there was this guy named, that's believed to be the father. They're DNA testing back in the 30s, obviously. His name was Colonel Walker Henderson Scott. He wasn't a colonel. He told people he was a colonel. He was a carny type dude. He was a scammer, a flim-flam man, matchstick man, whatever you want to call it. So Kathy tells him she's pregnant at age 15, and he's like, I have to leave to go back to the Army for whatever reason. Never comes back. Manson never meets him. Manson's mom would marry a William Manson while Manson was while she was pregnant with Charles. So that's where he got the Manson name from William Manson. They were divorced. They were married in August of 34. So you can imagine that he was born in November of 34. Mom was married in August of 34. So especially in 1930s, that would have been probably like, whoa, what's going on here? They were divorced 3 years later. Manson's mom, and later on, and his paternal uncle, this was Colonel Walker's brother, they knock off a store. And it's hard to decipher if it's like a liquor store, because back then stores were different. So I've heard gas station, liquor store could have been one place. They could have sold liquor, gas, guns, whatever you're talking about here. So that goes on. She gets 5 years in jail. During those 5 years in jail, Manson goes to live in West Virginia with an uncle. He's physically abused. He's mentally abused. Back then, it probably might not even, if you went to the cops and said something, everyone kind of beats shit out of their kids. He made Charles wear women's clothing to school. And Manson mentions this in a couple interviews, and he acts like it doesn't bother him, but it 1,000,000% bothers him. 1,000% he's bothered by this. So he's got that going on. This was, his mom then got out of jail. When she got out of jail and she came back there, kind of live with him in West Virginia, he said it was the happiest couple of weeks of his life. She drank, she remarried. She was a very promiscuous woman. What do we know about people that do this? Even though Manson is not a serial killer, he probably killed one person. We don't know for sure. That was Shorty Shea at the Spawn Ranch. But he was never hands-on with the actual murdering of other people. He tied up La Biancas or helped tie them up, but Tex Watson did the deed there. So, but it's still, I mean, this guy, you don't lump him in there, but he's still one of these minds that we kind of need to understand so this shit doesn't happen again. I don't think it ever can in this situation, because it had so much to do with the times. The times. He had access to so many people because of the times. You wouldn't be able to have access to people like that today. He spent time in numerous boys' towns where he was abused. He was SA'd. He was even in one in Terre Haute, Indiana, bringing everything back to Indiana. I always say McKeesport's the center of the universe. Maybe Indiana's the center of the universe. It's certainly the center of the true crime universe in recent years. He goes back and forth. He claimed at 9 years old to light his school on fire. It's unsubstantiated. He didn't mention a whole lot of other fire setting, although he could have. But, we talk about the McDonald triad or the homicidal triad. Some people still are takers of it. Some don't. But he didn't seem to, enjoy the thrill and the control of fire, if that makes sense. That's just my 2 cents. He stole a car from one of the homes with a kid, with another student. His name was Blackie Nelson. They drove to Illinois across state lines. It was really Charlie's first foray into documented crime. He was supposedly SA'd a boy at a home in 1952. Before then, at knife point, he said it happened to him many times. So and at that time, back in those days, it's very reasonable to believe that he was SA'd in various places. A lot of people are, and they don't go on to, lead people to kill people and stuff like that. But just we always see the same things, right? With the people that we talk about, always see the same thing. So he was. Let me get up here. I have a bunch of stuff. I just want to go over some things, and I want to introduce you to the key players today. That's what today's going to be, because I know you watched that video of Mama Cass, Warren Beatty. What the fuck, Coach Kev? Why did you put them in there? I'm going to get to that. I'm going to explain that to you. Second time he was in prison. Manson actually got married and had his son. He was I think an aide or a nurse in a psychiatric clinic. Yeah, Rosalie gave birth to their son Charles Manson Jr. He's done some interviews. I don't obviously. What are you going to talk about? But she passed away in 1993. I think I have that correct. Oh, no, I take that back. That was his son. Charles Manson Jr. passed away in 1993. There's another son, too, that gives interviews. Then there's DNA. There's all kind of crazy shit going on. But that guy did give a couple interviews early on. Second time in imprisonment while he was away. He was a U.S. Treasury check that he stole from a mailbox and somehow tried to cash it. And that was a big deal back then. But by then he was already pimping a 16-year-old girl out, which in my opinion, the pimping game is how he met a lot of people in Hollywood prior to even going to Terminal Island, going to jail at Haight-Ashbury. Before all that, he would run prostitution rings. He took a lady to New Mexico, and it was called the Mann Act at the time. He gets in and out of stuff. You see him continuously going. One episode's probably just going to be on his imprisonments. He gets in jail, then he gets away. He gets in jail, then he gets away. Someone lets him out. Someone lets him out. Someone lets him out. It goes all the way up until he's arrested for the murders, including after the murders happen when they do a big raid at Spawn Ranch. One of those pictures was an auto raid. They were an auto ring. They were stealing cars for money. They were making the dune buggies. They had already committed the acts of that summer, and this was they're up there busting them, so they don't even know it's them that did this. They're there for an auto raid. But hey, so as we move on with Manson, so let me read you this. This is where we start getting into the holy shit, what happened here? Okay, less than a month after his 1967 release, he goes to Terminal Island. The guy steals a car in Ohio, drives it with his wife, then he's cashing checks. I mean, it's just continuous. And it's always like the dude always seems to commit a federal act, taking stuff across state lines, cashing a federal treasury check. So less than a month after his 1967 release, this was from Terminal Island in California, he moved to Berkeley from L.A., which could have been a probation violation. It should have been. But instead, after calling the San Francisco probation office upon his arrival, so he leaves Berkeley and goes to San Francisco. From Berkeley, he needed to ask, can I go to a different city? I want to start anew or whatever. Once you leave that area and you're supposed to be there, you're in a different jurisdiction. He should have went to prison right then and there. Okay. But instead, the probation office, he's transferred to supervision of a criminology doctoral researcher and federal probation officer, Roger Smith. So he is a regular probation officer, and then boom, he ends up with this Roger Smith. Roger Smith plays a huge role in this. Roger Smith and Jolly West, we can never actually say that necessarily they met each other, but we knew they contacted each other through correspondence. And let me take this off the shelf now. Where did I put it? It's up here. Hold on one second. I should have took this down when I started today. A lot of this research is coming from the book Chaos by Tom O'Neill. I couldn't recommend it enough. It's a long read. I think it's about 900 some pages. I take that back. 435 pages, but it's a big book. The smaller ones ends up being 900. He researched this for over 30 years. He has another book coming out, and it's really, really interesting. But anyways, so yeah, he said, so he doesn't have a regular probation officer. He gets this Roger Smith. No one's really sure how that happens. And he says, I tell you what, Charlie, I think you should go down to the Haight. That was the Haight-Ashbury section of San Francisco. Free love, hippies, sex, drugs, rock and roll, all that type of stuff. Well, Roger Smith worked at what was called the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic. He hooked up with a guy named, you saw him in a picture, Jolly West. Why did I put a picture of an elephant in there? Jolly West killed him with acid, and I'll explain that later as we get down. You can't make this shit up. You really can't. So Roger Smith, as well as the Haight-Ashbury Free Medical Clinic founder David Smith, they received funding from the National Institute of Health and reportedly the CIA. I believe they did get money from the CIA to study the effects of drugs like LSD, methamphetamine on the counterculture movement at the Haight-Ashbury district. So Jolly West, who was a researcher, a psychiatrist, very, very well schooled, his deal was he worked with the CIA and he did mind control. That was his area of expertise, how to control other people's minds. This is what this guy worked on and what he did. He used different drugs. He was definitely part of MK Ultra. Okay, MK Ultra is when they were giving servicemen acid, saying this is for night vision. But really what they were doing, in my opinion, was trying to create the Manchurian Candidate. When your body goes into extreme stress like that, what happens is your brain splits. If they force enough stress on you, your brain splits to protect you. So basically you don't go crazy. So once that split occurs, there's half and half. And then you would pick up a phone and call and say a word, and someone would do something, or however it would work. It sounds crazy, right? All of it isn't true, but a lot of it is. They tried to do this. These were later declassified, MK Ultra. Jolly West was also part of Operation Midnight Climax. You can look that up. It was in San Francisco. They had a whorehouse or a working girl house. It's called a whorehouse in here, sex worker house, where they would pay these girls. They were working there anyway. They'd pay them a little extra. And what they would do is they would dose the Johns with LSD. They installed two-way mirrors. So these people didn't even know they were taking acid, right? They didn't even know they were taking it. And they would watch them. And they would watch them, have sex with the girls and do whatever they were doing and watch their reaction and study them. So Jolly West, this is out, Operation Midnight Climax. They were spiking drinks with acid of American citizens. And this is back in the late 50s. Operation Midnight Climax had happened. You heard the story where the guy jumped out the window, where they spiked actually CIA people's drinks at an event. It's all very crazy, but it's all very true because it's all declassified now. And I'm sure that there's a lot more going on. But anyway, so Manson gets out there, right? He's out there. While we're doing this, I'm going to answer a couple of quick questions. I'm going to show you put some pictures up so you guys can have some context for what I'm talking about now that my computer is back up and running. Yeah, Ruckus tonight will be with Frank Meister and Kristen. I don't even know if the topic is just a river search. It looks like it. It'd be interesting. It's something I'd be watching, but like I said, we're going to go. I think I'm going to get a Cuban sandwich tonight. This place has a lot of gluten-free stuff. One of their kids has celiacs. And of course, if you don't know, I do. So I can no longer eat my favorite sandwich was the Burger King original chicken. That was my favorite, the oval-shaped one. We are all only every one avenue from a completely different life. Our environment. Oh, absolutely. Sorry, I'm really behind on the chat here. I'm going to catch up and show you some things. Yeah, the people were just, yeah, Mama Cass. So here's the thing with Mama Cass. We'll get to this, but since you brought it up, we'll get to this. There isn't proof of this, but Mama Cass told people this, and it is believed that Mama Cass arrived at 150 Cielo Drive which was where the Tate murders occurred, after the murders but before the police. It's speculative that there was another person that showed up there too. Mama Cass was showing up to buy some shit, whatever, probably from Wojtek Frykowski. He was one of the victims at Cielo Drive. So, you know, she supposedly told people that. Again, that's hearsay, and probably a lot of those people died. But when we start to get into this, it makes sense and it's very believable. And she said she was never, ever able to forget it. And how could you? But she didn't contact the police. She was under the influence of some at that point, and it's just bizarre. Steve McQueen was supposed to be there that night. He was coming to hang out. You know, hey, we're gonna go hang out. Jay Sebring was the Hollywood coke guy. He was a barber, but he was the cocaine guy. So everyone knew him. So they'd go in there, and he was like the first, from what I understand, male stylist. You know, you go into a barber shop, and there's a guy with a buzz cut with a towel over his shoulder who shaves you and smacks you in the face with some aqua velva. Sage Sebring was the first stylist. So, hey, a barber charges $5. I'm charging you $25, but I'm a stylist. I'm going to mousse your hair or whatever the hell. Look, I don't know. I'm not the guy to ask about styling stuff. So, but he was also the coke guy. So you would get the coke from him, and that's come out. I also believe that Sharon Tate was not pregnant with Roman Polanski's baby. I think she was pregnant with Jay Sebring's baby, but I don't think Roman Polanski has anything to do with this. That murder. Of course, he was a heinous individual. He's not allowed in this country because of an act against a minor, a very horrific act. But we'll get to that. But I wanted to mention that Mama Cass and Steve McQueen. Angela Lansbury's daughter was a member of the Manson family, quote unquote, the Manson family, and she got her out of there. And if you remember Sybil Shepherd hung out with them too because she was boyfriends with Terry Melcher. Sybil Shepherd was on a show. What was the name of the show? If I'm not mistaken, with Bruce Willis back in the 80s, Moonlighting or something like that. But she was also involved. So all these people were involved. Later on, I'm gonna include Jack Ruby, because Jolly West interviewed Jack Ruby, and you know, it sounds insane, but let me lay it out for you. It's going to take probably most of this year in 1 hour episodes, but today we just get a big broad overview. But I want to tell you why I had those people in the pictures. Manson had to, yeah. And then, you know, like other bullies, he becomes the bully, because here we hear he gets assaulted in a home. He then assaults someone else in a home. Jim's mom's in Indiana. Yeah, Terre Haute was a place that he stayed at. Also Indianapolis. They had someone in Indianapolis. What is up, Grez? Drugs, yeah, they would get drugs from, I believe they would get drugs from the Haight-Ashbury Clinic from Jolie West. Charlie Manson called him his jujus or his candy, and he'd come out with a brown paper bag full of candy. Everyone said it was candy. It was candy. I believe it was LSD. And you got to understand, too, there was a lot of times that the family, quote unquote, the Manson family was on LSD and Charlie wasn't, as a means of control. Charles Manson used CIA mind control techniques against these kids. Did he learn it from the CIA? How did it work? I don't know, but he used the same exact techniques that they were using at the time, standing over top, drugging them, illusions of grandeur, hyperbole. Something else I don't believe. So we talked earlier about Vince Bugliosi real briefly. Helter Skelter is the #1 true crime book in history, right? In history. I think Helter Skelter, in my opinion, is 90% horse shit. It is horse shit. They changed the laws after the trial because Bugliosi had his ghostwriter in the courtroom. You can't do that shit. It was clear. I know people say, well, Baldwin and Rosie from Delphi want to write a book. Yeah, maybe they do. This one wants to write. Yeah, maybe they do. Vince Bugliosi while he was prosecuting the Manson family, had his guy right there taking notes. And after that, they changed the law. But Vince Bugliosi is quite a character. That's going to be one episode on its own. But let me show you some pictures of these folks here, if I may. And just talk about them all real briefly. So I wanted just to kind of paint a picture, give you an overview. So when I say somebody's name or something, oh, that's him. Oh, that's him. So let me open up my Gmail. Yeah, my video cannot be monetized because Charles Manson whacked me with a thing. That's okay. I wanted you to hear that song. It doesn't have to be monetized. This is to the left to right. Doris Day, famous actor. her son Terry Melcher. Where does Terry Melcher play into this? Well, if you read Helter Skelter and you believe the original narrative, you would believe that the Manson let me move this off of here so it doesn't look like a Delphi stolen crime scene photo. If you believe the Helter Skelter narrative, you would believe that the Manson family went to 150 Cielo Drive where Sharon Tate was running the home from Rudy Altobelli. We'll talk about him too. It's a very extravagant guy who lived in the back. He gave Tom O'Neill tons of interviews and tons of information. But anyways, I digress. So that's what Vince Bugliosi tells you. Well, we hear a story later, and it's confirmed by many people that Charles Manson actually went to Terry Melcher's house, his new house. I think it was in Malibu. And he left a bullet there. And it was a sign because Manson felt that Terry Melcher screwed him over on a record deal. Charles Manson and then Doris Day, obviously big strings she could pull, being a queen of Hollywood, tremendous actor, an icon, movie icon. My grandma was a big fan of her. And so whatever could have been done there could have been done there. But we know that Dennis Wilson from the Beach Boys, who Charles Manson met, hold on there, Dick Tracy, who Charles Manson also met and got to know. Of course, he's going to be the last one. He's not even in here. Sorry about that. You have a picture. You can figure out what Dennis Wilson looks like. Look at him in hippie days. Anyways, these were the victims of 150 Cielo Drive. All in their 20s. I think Stephen Parent was still a teenager, I believe. So from left to right, we have Wojtek Fryczowski. His girlfriend was Abigail Folger. She was the heiress to the Folgers coffee fortune. She's on the far right. We'll get to her. Sharon Tate, who was 26 at the time, and pregnant, 7 months pregnant. Back then in California, they didn't charge the Manson family for the murder of the baby too. Today, they would have got another murder charge, which wouldn't have mattered because they would have been in jail the rest of their lives anyway. But just for a point of reference, Stephen Parent was visiting the caretaker, a guy by the last name of Garrison. He was talking about buying a radio. There's some connotations that maybe the guys were, homosexual and had a rendezvous. Well, the autopsy proved that wasn't there. He drank like one beer. So they probably, Parent here, he worked at a stereo store. He'd come up, help you hook up your stereo speakers, things like that. So he was supposed to buy like an alarm clock or a radio clock or something like that. He went to look at it. I'm known if I don't think he bought it. Not that really matters. But Garrison, the caretaker, if you watch initial reports and you hear there's an arrest made that night, they arrested him. They thought it was him. He claimed not to hear anything, including a gunshot, because Stephen Parent was killed by Tex Watson in the driveway in his car trying to get out of the gate with a gun. So he said he doesn't hear it. Right? We have, like I was mentioning before, Jay Sebring. Jay Sebring was the stylist to the stars, to the males. Also, the coke guy in Hollywood for a lot of them. And then the far right is Abigail Folger. Her family ran the Folgers Coffee. And they were all friends with Sharon Tate, all very good friends with her. And, just hanging out. They went to dinner earlier in the night. There's Charles Tex Watson when he was arrested. Tex Watson was a football player from Texas. Big, tall, handsome guy. Now, Charles Tex Watson and Manson began to have some heat. Charles Tex Watson had a very lucrative drug business going on, right? And a lot of people don't want to talk about the drug angle to the Manson case. But Tex Watson is the reason, in my opinion, that Charlie committed his first shooting where he shot a drug dealer by the name of Lots of Papa. That's Lots of Papa. So that's a pretty interesting nickname. I don't know if they called him that because he had a bunch of kids, which would make sense. But who knows? Watson went to his apartment with a girlfriend. He got fronted some drugs, and he's like, leave your girlfriend here this way. I know you'll come back. Tex Watson says, fine. Phew, scoots down the road. Doesn't care much about his girlfriend. Tex Watson now, I don't know what he is now, but I'll tell you what, back then, he was a level A narcissist, man. He thought he looked good. He smelled. He was the man. And so he left his girlfriend there. So they call out to the phone at Spawn Ranch where the Manson family was staying. George Spawn let them have their place to upkeep. They would give horse rides and trails and stuff like that and do a whole bunch of other weird shit out there for sure. But Manson actually answers the phone, and he's like, hey, is it taxi? He's like, this is Charlie. And he's like, I'm going to come out there and I'm going to kill you and this and that because you robbed me on a drug deal. So Manson thought that he was a Black Panther, lots of papa. So Manson's like, okay, we'll come see you. So he goes there with Watson. I don't think it was with Watson. I think it was with somebody else, but we'll get granular on this later. He ends up with this old gun. He shoots lots of papa lives. Now, the story now is he goes back to Spawn Ranch and thinks that, we're going to Helter Skelter because he doesn't like black people. And what Helter Skelter is what they say it was there was going to be a race war. The black people would kick the white people's ass, but the black people wouldn't be smart enough to run the country. So they would seek out Charles Manson in Death Valley, California, and said, please, Charles, show us how to run things. Manson would take over. They'd repopulate the earth with the Manson family. This was the story that was said. The Beatles album, they heard Helter Skelter. Look, I'm going to tell you something. Charles Manson, I don't even think liked the Beatles. Charles Manson was a beatnik music guy, and he was later a folk music guy if you listen to his music. So I think that was embellished. Maybe he listened to their songs, but I don't think he interpreted the White Album as, hey, this is what we're going to do or whatever. That's my 2 cents. It's also Tom O'Neill believes a version of that too. So here we have, this is the 1050 Cielo Drive, right? Now, why is Warren Beatty in my little photo collage, right? Well, if you follow that little ladder up the steps, there's like a loft there. I don't know the technology, how the technology worked or whatever, but if you follow that ladder up there, supposedly, and this is actually confirmed, I shouldn't say supposedly, the LAPD found old movie rolls. You're talking in the 60s, so home movies were shot. Roman Polanski had home movies. Supposedly, the LAPD said, the home movies were only, Roman Polanski and Sharon Tate having sex and stuff like that. Well, that's not true. There was many people on there. Roman Polanski would force her to have sex with 2 different people. He was into watching like 2 different black guys dominate his girl. There's supposedly videos up there with Warren Beatty and her. And there's supposedly other videos up there, or tapes, I should say, or whatever you want to call them, the old reels that comes in a can, of bisexual threesomes with people such as Warren Beatty, Dennis Hopper, Steve McQueen. I mean, just all kind of people doing all kind of crazy shit. And this is where they stored these tapes at. If you remember at the end of Hugh Hefner's life, Hugh Hefner said he had these tapes. And whether he did or not, we don't know. And then I'm not going to release them. And Hefner supposedly dropped them in the middle of the ocean. That I can't confirm. But you know what? The more you hear about this story, the more you're like, that's possible. What you're seeing here in the chair, his chair is highlighted from his crime scene photo. And there's really horrible crime scene photos that are readily available. I'm not going to share them here with you. You guys know how bad this was. We don't need to send it home anymore. And like I said, I said the same thing with Delphi case. I have never seen the crime scene photos, but 1 or 2 pictures aren't going to help me. There's 3,000 pictures taken, and you're showing me one. So it's only one piece of the puzzle. Someone is believed to sat in that chair and watch Sharon Tate, what they believed was expire. There were some other things here too. The rope, they hung up Wojtek Wachowski. Jay Sebring with the rope, almost like they were trying to interrogate him or something. I'm not exactly sure. There's Roman Polanski sitting outside the home. He was away in England filming, I think, Revenge of the Dolphin or some kind of movie. I don't even know what the name of it was. He returns, and if you look closely, you could still see where they had pig scribbled on the door. The theory is in Helter Skelter that they wanted to make this look like this was like Black Panther type, black extremist type crime. And they wrote that on the door. They also left stuff at the La Bianca house. This is Charles Manson shortly before his death. Nazi sign still intact. Just a goof. I mean, he was a ham for the media. He loved any kind of attention at all. There's we talked about Tex before. There's Charles Manson with this arrest here. Actually, this was not the. He has the unibrow. I think this was the arrest from the 50s at some Terminal Island, because he has buckskin on after he's arrested for murders. There's old Warren Beatty, and there's so many of these other Hollywood stars who supposedly appeared on these tapes. And whether that had something to do with it or not, I'm not saying it did. I really don't know, but I just wanted to share all that with you because I think it's extremely interesting, and it it's relevant to what we're going to discuss as we move further down the line here. And we're going to go way down the line here. So let's see what you guys are saying here in the chat. And then we're about 45 minutes. I'm going to give you some talking here, and then we're going to wrap up and talk about what we're going to talk about next episode. But I just wanted to kind of cover everything. Yeah, thanks, Miranda. Hit the like if you don't mind. Get back down. Diddums. Raised in West Virginia, early 60s. My family relocated to Indianapolis. My dad, he used to tease me. Oh, that's interesting because he kind of did, didn't he? Huh. Grizz, you getting your chores done? Very good. I need to take a hot shower and put some of my weed cream on. My neck and arm is it was hurting prior, but just moving around at the fire. And the young dogs run. I run a pump. I'll go throw a ladder. Hey, I need a ladder. I need this or that. But Frank Meister, what is happening? Frank Meister, he was up bright and early this morning because he was texting me a bunch of documents. So Delphi is every day. Check out Frank's page for all the updates. Yes, Doris Day is Terry Melcher's mother. Yeah. So as we go on later to this, and like there's a lot of people in Hollywood that wanted this is a crazy call. Yeah. Don't bring nothing else up. Don't bring nothing else up. And could Doris Day have had influence in 1967, 68, 69 in Hollywood? You better believe she had influence. I'm not saying she's a bad character or anything like that, but that was hopefully I didn't say the wrong thing there and you were correcting me, but if you did, and I did, thank you. Yeah, Manson, he would take acid. He would do other things too. And as we get more into the Haight-Ashbury thing, Jolly West had a flop pad for hippies where he would just give them drugs and he'd study them. That was his thing. So he was giving them a bunch of acid and seeing how they would respond to acid. And then from acid, they moved on to methamphetamine, speed. And when they gave these hippies speed, it wasn't the cool flower power shit. It was like, you know, like any kind of cocaine stimulant. It kind of makes you act a little fucking grimy. You know what I mean? So that changed the game. So whether they were looking for that or whatever the case, they knew what it was doing. They 100% knew what it was doing. So you got the MDMA. There was people at Cielo Drive that had MDMA in their system. The Manson family that night, were they on acid? I don't think they were. Were they on some kind of meth or something? Yeah, I think that they were. And I think that's how they acted the way they did. If you've ever seen the movie to Rob Zombie, I think it's The Devil's Rejects. I think it's the second movie in that series. If you're into crime movies, those movies are awesome. Sid Haig was just like the scariest son of a bitch. But in that movie, Captain Spaulding, Otis Driftwood, one of the protagonists of the movie, probably the worst one, says to the two guys, I'm the devil and I'm here to do the devil's work. That is what Tex Watson was said to have said when they got into the Cielo Drive. You know, hey, what are you doing here? I'm the devil and I'm here to do the devil's work. So that was another thing. And that was talked about by his co-conspirators or what have you in that situation. And the trial's a whole nother thing. Jeez. Manson lived across the street from Central State Hospital on West Washington Street, Indianapolis, Indiana. Then spent time in Indiana boys' school, were believed to be, yeah. Terre Haute, I think, Frank, is what I saw. Mid-50s. I think that's what him and his buddy, Blackie Nelson, was the guy's name, stole a car and went to Illinois. Uh-oh. Are they the same one? Everything goes down in Indiana. You're right. Everybody has a link. We talked earlier, a possible Israel Key situation with Joe Newman. And Joe, if you're listening, definitely reach out to Frosty. Frosty has a weird schedule. He's probably sleeping right now, but we talked very briefly about that case. Lauren Spicer, I think is her name said, Spear. No, thank you, Charlotte. Thank you. Not missing a whole lot visually either if you're cooking dinner. Yeah, Tex Watson was like, he was extremely popular. I don't know if he was a quarterback or not, but he was like, you know, the high school quarterback jock, like a really nice kid by all accounts. And it just, man, it went downhill. Yeah, he wasn't. He wasn't a follower. Now, he kind of came, I don't know if he even ever came under Manson's control. That's the thing that I don't know, because Tex was kind of on his own. The women liked him, and he had a very lucrative drug business going on. I think that's what you're saying right here. Yep, Charles. Yeah. I definitely think there was heat there. Now, Manson says in one interview, it's very interesting, where he says that he went and shot lots of Papa, so Tex Watson owed him, because Tex Watson was really scared of this guy. So I'm pretty sure Tex wasn't there. I don't know if it was Bobby, brother Bobby, that was there, or who else was with Manson at that time. But so supposedly he says this in an interview, like, hey, listen, I'm not telling you to go there and do anything, but you do what you got to do. I did this for you. You do this for me. I'm not telling you what to do. Make it witchy or something like that. So who really knows? But I think that he might have held that over his head a little bit. Possibly. Yeah. That's why I don't know if you're listening before, but I said, you know, back then, I think he was a really big narcissist. But now, you know, is he a preacher? I mean, yeah, he is. Hopefully he believes it. But, you know, he was the hands-on guy. He was the executioner of this. Yeah. It was, I don't know if it was young people, but what he was doing, and a lot of CIA people have said this, was like, that was at the time, that's what we were doing. Helter Skelter was unfortunately tagged the Manson chaos simply by chance, the true origins of that song. Yeah, which is crazy, because it's so like opposite of what Helter Skelter, Vince Bugliosi's Helter Skelter. So it was like a mirror image. It was so opposite. You know, does that make sense to you? It was so opposite. I know Gene's known to have a couple beers and sing like entire James Taylor albums. Don't get him started on Simon and Garfunkel. He could sing. Neil was at Harvest Moon. He sang karaoke. Yeah, Warren dated Madonna during, I think, the Dick Tracy era, if I'm not mistaken. Listen, there was a lot of things going on. Dennis Hopper was up there. It was the 60s. I mean, people were skunked out of their minds on many different things. And maybe you could get to the point where you're like, yeah, it sounds good to have sex with a group of people, men, women, whatever. But Polanski was into that. Polanski later showed what he was into was forcibly, you know, sodomizing a child, a young girl. It wasn't 18. And now he can't come back in this country. And yeah, I'm not a big fan of Roman Polanski. And as we go further on, I think he was really mean to Sharon Tate. And I said that earlier on. I don't think that Sharon Tate was pregnant to Roman Polanski. I think her and Jay Sebring were back together. Now, after dinner, it's like 10:30 at night. Her and Jay Sebring, whenever the family came in, were sitting on her bed talking at, you know, 10:30, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. They're on her bed talking. Could it just be friends? Yeah, I guess. They actually saw one of the girls, I think it was Patricia Krenwinkel, walk down the hall. She walked down the hall past them, and they thought someone just showed up. Like, she looked, she said hi to them and walked down the hall. And they were just sitting there. And, you know, it's the 60s. So it's like, wow, I don't know. Maybe somebody came in to smoke a joint or something. And then from there, all hell broke loose. Manson had sat in the prison movie for a month before service was held. They had to basically paint makeup on him. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Frank, there was all kind of they were fighting over his body, and they were doing DNA tests or whatever. Yeah, it's very bizarre. I mean, why not? His whole life was very bizarre. Why not fight over the body? And you had him on ice for 30 days somewhere. Yeah. He refused to marry her. Oh, okay. So that was another. There's a condition for that the women that marry or fall in love with people on death row. I don't know if he did. He might have not been a fan of it himself, but it was being pushed very heavily at the Haight-Ashbury by Jolly West. And like I said before, he might have given his people speed and not taken it. I don't know. That no one knows that for sure. I'm just theorizing by the way they were acting, by the things that they were saying. They were like ghoulish as they showed up there. Then there's theories that was a drug, that was supposed to be a drug rip. There's all kind of different stuff. Mescaline. Huh. Well, speed is kind of, I can see the speed speeding you up, and then the mescaline more like the hippie experience. I remember that phrase. Can't imagine hearing that. Oh, yeah, it's just horrible. And one of the other terrible things, like the quotes from that incident, and it was from, I don't know if it was from Atkins. One of the girls that were there said as they were stabbing Abigail Folger, she got out to the yard and they were stabbing her in the grass. She said, stop, I'm already dead. And that was one of the things, like, think about that. That's so, I've thought about that a lot. That's so mind-numbing. But that's one of the things that she said. She said that, one of the girls said, yeah, she said that to me. There's the name, All Eyes on the Knot. Yeah, Frosty has some stuff on that. Joe Newman, I think you're former LE. You and Frosty, there's a case for you guys to get on if you'd like. Yeah, I've heard that before too, Stella. And it was big back then. You had Anton LaVey, all that shit going on out there, right? I don't know if they were sacrificing people, but there was a house in San Francisco, supposedly Tate and Polanski, if you read, the book, they go there. He talks about that a little bit. And there's, blood orgy type things going on, and just really weird, strange stuff. But I don't know if they were killing anyone, but you could see how something like that could kind of get turned around. And it was very prominent back then. Yeah. Rosemary's Baby. That's an old movie. That's a creepy movie. It doesn't need to have a lot of gore in it to be creepy. Tate was in that circle simply for the contacts. Yeah. I agree with you too. I think there might have been a mutual, like we're using you and you're using her. And yeah, absolutely. And Tate or Polanski had called her that day and said he wasn't coming home. He's supposed to come home, but he was staying away a little bit longer. Manson casket pick is haunting. Red and Black. Whoa, that just makes sense. I haven't seen that one. I've seen people standing. There was a video actually that someone posted of a couple of people that were there. There's a YouTuber named Spawn Ranch Worker. He was actually there, and he became friends with Manson. And there was a guy named Gray Wolf. I think Manson called him Gray Wolf. And he was friends with Manson for years. He'd go and visit him, and then Gray Wolf got him into it. So it's all bizarre, right? It's all crazy and it's all bizarre. But now, without getting too in depth with anything here, give you a couple things, and then we'll go as I do this maybe once every 2 weeks, or whenever I have time. If other stuff picks up, if Delphi, there's always something going on there. Long Island serial killer case, Rex Heuermann. You want to talk about a corrupt police chief? Jimmy Burke might be the worst police chief ever in the history of ever. The guy that was up there in Long Island, but yeah. Also, there was Gary Hinman. That was brother Bobby Beausoleil. So if you hear Manson tell it in interviews, there was a musician, Gary Hinman, and he was like tied to the Black Panthers. He was very radical. He was a music teacher, very radical guy. He would try to help, the civil rights movement. He got him with the Black Panthers. They went over there, tried to get money off him. Manson cut his ear off with a sword, and Bobby Beausoleil actually killed him. Had the knife in the car, drove away in a car, was found on the side of a highway taking a nap with a murder weapon on him. So Bobby, and they painted stuff on the wall there, peg and stuff like that. And supposedly Manson, one of the theories is, and I don't think it's a crazy theory, is Manson staged a copycat murder at the Tate house to try to spring brother Bobby Beausoleil, to say, see, this is another type of murder like this happened with this stuff here, but, you know, why do you have him in jail? So that's absolutely possible too. And, you know, again, I don't think Charles Manson was crazy, but he certainly was wanked out of his mind on drugs. There's no question. No question. So he was in control to a certain extent, but I don't think it was total control. I don't think they called themselves the Manson family. They just called themselves the family. And I think you had a little bit of a power struggle at the end with Manson and Tex Watson. That's what I believe anyway. Shorty Boyd. Make sure I get his name right. Shorty Boyd was a character from The Wire. I don't think that was his name. There was a ranch hand named Shorty that they're pretty sure that Manson actually killed him on his own. But there's a list of people that they were tied to. And supposedly he was telling George Spawn, who owned Spawn Ranch, hey, these guys are no good. You need to kick them out of here. But they let him stay there for basically nothing. Some of the guys and gals would give horse rides. People would come up. It was an old movie ranch. There was trails. So they would take people out on trails. I think Tex was good on a horse. A couple other guys were good on a horse. And one of the episodes, probably might be the next one, actually, we're going to go over the entire family, talk about everybody from his first mother, Mary, you know, Diane Lake, Kasabian, Krenwinkel, Tex Watson, Steve Grogan, I think was his name. We'll talk about all of them too and explain all that. But I just wanted to just give you this. Shorty Shea. I said Shorty Boyd. Shorty Boyd was a hitman in the show The Wire. Donald Shorty Shea. Thank you, Jim's mom. It's a heck of a story. So if you guys do any of your own research, and again, I can't recommend this book enough. Operation Chaos. That's what it was called. It was the operation that they were running. Charles Manson, the CIA, the secret history of the 60s. There's a guy named Reeve Whitson in here who's incredibly interesting. He was a CIA. He was an asset to a lot of people. I think he worked with the CIA, did a bunch of different things. He supposedly said he was there and was able to stop the murders. Here's him dressed as a hippie as we go old school. Reeve Whitson. But I encourage you to get the book and do as much research you can. The author's name is Tom O'Neill. He has done many interviews. He's done interviews like as big a place as Joe Rogan, some other stuff. He talks about doing coke with Marilyn Manson like a couple of years ago, which coke ain't my thing, but you know, old guy doing coke with Marilyn Manson. That's interesting. I'll listen to that for a little bit anyway, right? But I want to thank you all for joining today. A good crowd. You know, get back to what I came here for. We'll cover Delphi. I'm going out there in a couple of weeks. We'll never give up on Flora and anything else that comes up. But this is the stuff that really makes me think, because I have a theory, but I don't know. I have like 2 or 3 different theories on this, on what might have happened. But I'm going to lay that out for you. But do your own research. Check out Tom O'Neill stuff. Check out Manson CIA stuff. See what you think. You might come back and say, hey, man, this is bullshit, Coach Kevin. This is why I think that. And then we can, you know, go back and forth on it. So that's it. So go back and watch the tournament. I wanted to keep it an hour. I'm probably going to do 10 to 12 of these episodes to cover all this. So I'm not going to do like 2 6-hour live streams because, you know, I don't have that kind of stamina anymore. But I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I made you think. A couple of things, you know, look, I'm going to look up Warren Beatty, Charles Manson. I'm going to look up Dennis Hopper. And then maybe you could bring something to me that I don't know. And then we're all better for it. Kevlar148@hotmail.com or Kevlar148@gmail.com. Let me know if you find anything or if you have any other questions. I'm going to get back to watching the tournament here a little bit, get set, get ready to go out, have some good gluten-free food. Watching Roadhouse at the Fire. Oh, yeah. Oh, if you're watching the original, Gene, because Patrick Swayze, in my opinion, Gene will tell you, is the greatest American actor ever. Sorry if anyone else disagrees. I just won't hear any argument on it, though. My mind is made up. So they got to be watching the original Roadhouse. And they got quite the crew working down there today, so that should be very interesting to watch Roadhouse at the fire station. But that is all, everybody. So I'm going to get out of here. Happy Friday. Have a good weekend. Enjoy the NCAA tournament. Unless you're like me and I'm out of every bracket already that I picked, so I'm certainly no expert, so don't listen to me about anything college basketball ever again, I guess. Check out the Manson stuff. Rewatch do your own research, check out videos. That's how it gets done. That's how you learn stuff. If you're into it, it's a haunting story. It's a very haunting story. And I'm the kind of guy that likes to get to know like what really happened. Like for me, I need to know. Not going to go tell anyone or come here for myself. I want to know what happened. Maybe we'll find out someday. Maybe we won't. So before I get out of here, we'll use the old Doug Carter and say tentacles. Doug Carter's an old guy, but he'll still kick your ass as he displays his perfect running skill down the street at the courthouse Monday. And I will say, love you, everybody. I appreciate all the support that everyone gives me. Coach